should be able to hear me now. Welcome to the Executive Member for Transport Decision Session, 16th of November 2021. I have first item on the agenda is declarations of interest. I have none to declare on the item before us today. The minutes of the meeting October the 19th I have to approve. Just one or two minor corrections to note on there. I think on paragraph 25, resolved, I think that should read item 23 rather than idea 23. There's just a typo there. And on page 6, I think in maybe a couple of places, a reference to CARES, which should be CARERS, so carers rather than cares. So that's in that item. And lastly, on the minutes, on item 29, resolved to approve option C. There were also some minor amendments to the officer's recommendations, which are being followed through. So just to note that those were approved as well, if you want to check afterwards with the officer precisely the details of what they were, but just to note that those were approved as well as the option C. So with that, I'm happy to approve those minutes with those amendments. So the next item I have is public speakers, public participation. As far as I'm aware, we only have one. We have one speaker registered. And that is Councillor Waters. Do you want to take your seat? And when you're ready, 3 minutes contribution to this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm here to speak on a matter within the remit of the Executive Member for Transport and a number of the officers present today, and that's the utter idiocy of the Badger Hill residents' parking scheme. But I can't let the Coppergate agenda item pass without comment. You've run a consultation, however you describe it, and there's a majority in favour of reopening Coppergate to two-way traffic again. There is only one course of action to take, and that's to open the road back up again. Otherwise, don't ever pretend to consult again on any subject at all. Now back to why I'm here. You as executive members and officers in this room decided to move a York University and Archbishop Aldgate School parking problem from Badger Hill and dump it over the road in Osberwick. No attempt to display a modicum of common sense and question why the York University's empty car parks couldn't be used free for staff and student parking. No attempt to engage with the university to investigate a Section 73 planning application to vary the Islington needs to planning conditions and specifically the travel plan to open up these car parks. No attempt to make use of park and ride car parks with the Park and Stride initiative. No attempt by the City of York Council to monitor this ridiculous situation that you have created. In fact, the thought processes of those involved in this displaced parking fiasco appear to be one of job creation. Move a problem, don't try to solve it, just move it, upset another set of residents, and then try to introduce yet another pointless residents' parking scheme. I would invite the executive members and the officers responsible for this shambles to join the residents of Osberwick and myself back in the real world. The York University travel plan has never worked since implemented. All concerned might think cars aren't being driven up to the campus by staff and students, but they are being driven in surrounding areas and dumped in residential streets. The fact that you have had to extend a Badger Hill residents' parking scheme highlights this. You and the officers need to solve this problem, not merely move it about. I'm still waiting to hear back from the university, but if an application to vary the travel plan and therefore the planning condition to open up to free use by staff and students the vast, virtually empty university car parks is made, I expect this to be supported by yourselves. Failure to support a common sense resolution will only heap yet more rightful ridicule on the council's highways officers. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution, which will be duly noted. I now move on to item 4, which is the Coppergate Temporary Traffic Regulations Order proposal on pages 11 to 70. So over to Tony, is that going to speak to this item?
Yeah, just a very sort of quick update and review. Just to let you know that obviously Coppergate is a narrow street with restricted footway width on a key pedestrian route between the main Foot Street area and Coppergate Centre and Clifford's Tower. It's a key bus and cycle route, but which when operated in 2 directions, the narrow carriageway leads to a poor environment for pedestrians and cyclists and an increased risk of vehicle-pedestrian conflict. Approximately 49% of residents to the consultation supported the retention of the one-way restriction, citing the improved pedestrian and cycling environment as the reason for their response. However, the one-way operation leads to increased journey times and emissions for buses and taxis. Air quality is to anticipate improve in the immediate Coppergate area due to the lower number of vehicles on the street. However, additional vehicles will be using the diversion routes, which will have a negative impact on those routes potentially. We had over 300 responses to the consultation, and they've split roughly 51%, 49% in favour of the removal of the one-way restriction. There was also comments on the quality of the consultation, which we'll need to address in future consultations. The consultation was open to all members of the community, and we welcome comments from all groups with a particular interest. And we received a number of detailed responses, which we will consider in more detail during any future stages of the scheme, should it be approved. This is an apology really to say that there are some specialist implication items within the report. The officers were consulted, but not named in error in the report. I can give you those names if you need those.
So thank you for that comment, and thank you also for the report and for all the people who took the trouble to actually respond to this consultation. As you say, even though it does highlight the tensions that we face trying to balance the different claims on a very busy area of our city centre. And I know the consultation responses in both Annex A and Annex C, and also note the detailed comments, but in part the consequences of a temporary trial where suitable alternative bus stops haven't been provided on the diversion routes. Obviously, that is something that we would want to address as quickly as possible. The overall responses as to whether it should be continued were almost evenly divided, although I do note that there was also within the 15 of the respondents who said that they wanted it to be removed, said they wanted that to be done because of a narrowness of the cycle lane, which in your report, officers have given a commitment to rectifying that layout, even if in the short term, but that is something which we can address. So that was, and I know that there was a multiple options, so some of those 15 might have had other reasons for wanting it removed as well, but certainly there was a significant number, 10%, who felt that was an issue. As stated in some representations, these decisions take account of views, but also the evidence, such as, and for me, I feel very important, that significant is the accident record in the 10 years prior to this change taking place. And also to the extent to which the changes might improve the street as a place experienced by large numbers of pedestrians, together with the synergy with our forthcoming revised local transport plan, which I gather may actually become a statutory document once again for government funding. So I welcome the opportunity to rectify the narrowness of the segregated cycle lane, that's been referred to, and the points that have been made in the submission from York Cycle Campaign and also the Civic Trust in particular have given significant lengthy responses to this item, as well as the individuals who've made more general comments. It's certainly encouraging to note the reduced traffic on other streets in the areas such as Pavement, Stonebow and Peasham Green, as well as the improved safety and air quality, although it's obviously only an 18-month period. Nevertheless, it does hopefully indicate that that might be a consequence of a changed layout. I do think that these need to be closely monitored in terms of supporting the economic vitality of other streets, in not just those immediately off that street, but also if there's a reduced traffic flow along Stonebow, then obviously that benefits connectivity with Fossgate and the rest of the city centre as well, whereby the more peripheral streets like Fossgate and Coppergate are sort of perceived as being more as part of the city centre rather than being cut off by very busy levels of traffic. So I am happy to support the extension, which is in the officer recommendations, to allow feasibility work to be carried out, which would include the bus study, but I would also ask that the outcome of this consultation in terms of the views of the various stakeholders and the general public are taken into account when we look at the bus routing options, which will obviously be part of our bus service improvement plan, with due consideration being given to making things like making use of stops on Clifford Street, if that's a better alternative to the ones that we've currently got without shelters on Piccadilly. There also needs to be consideration of options. I have to acknowledge the additional, although relatively small, delay for buses that are going in an easterly direction. And so it may be that other measures could be put in place, such as bus priority at key points, to make that a more workable solution with the one-way still in place, so that the buses are not held up by delays. Signing also needs to be improved. I think this is again something which may come into the Castle Gateway remit, so that it's clear that Piccadilly provides access to Coppergate car park and Merchant Gate, but not beyond that for general traffic. We have a number of bus gates in the city, some of which are more well respected, such as Coppergate with the camera enforcement, than others that don't have that facility. So I think, again, that is potentially part of the reason why the traffic levels have dropped, is that the sort of route through the city centre and across and down Stonebow has been discouraged as a result of these changes. And finally, I'd like to thank, as I said earlier, the Civic Trust it's the Civic Trust Transport Advisory Group for significant work which will help inform the designs that might come forward at a later stage, subject to the extension being put in place. As I've indicated, I'm happy to approve. So I don't know if there's anything else that needs to be added to that. No, okay. So on that basis, I'm happy to approve the officer's recommendations with this report, but note that I have taken account of the impact on buses and taxis, and also the accident record and other issues such as that. Thank you. So I'll conclude the meeting on that note. Thank you.